Hey everyone, today we're ranking the killers of DBD from least to most disliked by the community, or my community really. I asked you all to vote on each, saying whether you liked, felt okay, or disliked facing each of them. For this ranking, there is a greater weighting for the like or dislike votes, as they are more decisive. For this we have 5 tiers: mainly liked, very split, disliked, and mainly disliked. First off, we have the mainly liked tier. This is for all the killers who have above a 50% for liked. It's actually a surprisingly high number. The most liked killer to face in a trial, unsurprisingly, is Demogorgon, who had a higher like to dislike or okay rating than any other character. It had 88% picks for like, 11% for okay to face, and only 1% in dislikes. Everyone loves Demo. It feels good facing one as they don't appear too often nowadays. Hillbilly follows him up. This one doesn't surprise me too much either. There's a lot of Billy love, and it's clear with this 75% like rating. Next we have Mastermind. This I thought was very interesting, with Wesker once being pretty hated, mainly for being overplayed. It seems with time though, people have warmed a lot to him and enjoy facing him, with a 69% like rating. Pig is surprisingly next with a 65% like rating. Reverse bear trap seem to bother people a lot, but I guess not that much. I like facing Pig too, and I don't think she has anything that is too annoying in her kit, aside the randomness of the bear trap sometimes. We then have Oni, which I find really surprising. I thought Oni would be up there, but top 5 is not what I expected. Oni does however have a much lower like percentage, but people still enjoy facing him it seems. We then very closely behind have Ghostface, who has a very slightly lower rating than Oni, with 62% likes and 1% more dislikes. I think Ghosty is maybe just slightly more split here, as it can be kind of a coin toss sometimes, with some being very fun and wholesome, and others becoming toxic. Onryo is next with 60% likes. Sadako is kind of like Pig I think, where she's pretty weak but pretty fun to face. It's nice when one appears, and it's usually just a decent game when you face them. Executioner is next with a 59% like rating. He did get a few less dislikes than Sadako though, so debatably they could be switched here. This is higher than I expected as a rating though. His kit is pretty fair, I guess, so it makes sense for him to be in the liked section. Nemesis is next up with a 54% rating. This one was kind of shocking to me, as I find the tentacle power very unfun to face. I think this rating is maybe made up for by the zombies, which can be a lot of fun to play around with. Huntress is next with a 53% like rating. She may very well still be the highest pick character in the game, and I think her ranged power feels largely fair to face and perfectly counterable. In the majority of games, if it's Huntress, I usually think, yep, that's fine. Dredge is maybe the most surprising one to me. Just about getting onto the lower end of this tier with a 51% rating. It has then a good amount of okay votes and not too many dislikes. I personally really hate facing Dredge. I hate Nightfall. I find Nightfall very infuriating. But hey, I guess it's widely pretty liked. I think mainly for the fact that its power is much more horror focused, but I'm not too sure. Next we have the liked tier. These characters had between a 49 to 34% like rating. This tier consists of just 3 characters: Blight, Shape, and Deathslinger. Blight has a 49% like rating, with a shockingly low dislike rating. This really surprised me to be honest. I absolutely cannot stand facing Blight, and I find them infuriating. This was then followed by Shape, who had a 43% like rating, with a sizable okay portion, and only a small 6% dislike rating. I think people mostly find Shape fun. It's just frustrating things like Tombstone and insta-downs that can make him unfun, just not to the point of flat out disliking him, I guess. We now move on to the midpoint of the list, with the very split tier. These are the characters who are mostly placed in the OK section, with no decisive voting for like or dislike. Trapper was first up here with a huge 61% OK votes, followed by 21% like and 18% dislike. This was very close to the next character, Artist, who who had 62% OK votes, 18% likes, and 20% dislikes. Due to Trapper having a slightly higher like weighting though, I thought he should be placed behind Artist, despite him having a higher OK score. These two again are surprising to me, and I thought they would be rated far closer on the dislike end. Wraith was maybe the most split on the entire list, with a very clear OK as a result, and a similar split of likes to dislikes. This means he's likely exactly in the middle of this very split tier, and seems to be the most OK character in the game to face. I do believe he is one of the most played killers, so it's likely partly that. A situation where people face him a lot, and the experience boils down to, yep, it's okay. Spirit I found was surprisingly tolerated well too. She had a 52% OK rating, and although there was a greater weighting toward dislikes, she had a decent number of likes too. I guess since her nerfs, she is just tolerated more now. I'm not entirely sure what to say in relation to this, but I guess people just hate other characters more. I would probably place her in OK too. Next we have Legion, who had pretty much the same rating as Spirit, only with a 1% lower like rating and a 1% higher OK rating. Not much of a difference, but it pushes Spirit just ahead. Legion, I pretty much agree, is just an OK killer to face. Their power can be annoying, sure, but they aren't exactly that strong either. So it kind of balances out, I think. Cenobite interestingly had a fairly even split of likes to dislikes, although still a clear dislike leaning with a near third for each category picked. I thought this would be much more dislike leaning, but hey, there you go. Twins then had near identical numbers, only with lower overall like to dislike votes, with more OK, but the same 7% difference in like to dislike numbers. This one I also think is going to vary a lot with the people you measure it by, as twins really don't appear too often. So the ones you do meet defines the outcome a lot, I think. The final character of this tier is interestingly Bubba, with also a near identical rating to Spirit and Legion, only with a slightly greater weighting toward dislike instead of like. This one surprised me. I guess it just depends on the type of Bubbas you get. This OK tier with a dislike leaning rating seems fair to me though. He is last tier for his lower like to dislike ratio compared to Cenobite. Okay, so now we're on to the dislike tier. This is for characters between 34% to 49% dislikes. Plague is next up, and honestly, I was surprised to see her this low, with a 37% dislike rating, although in fairness a bit of a higher like rating at 25%, but still a clear dislike weighting and a decent amount in OK. I think it's mainly the anti-heal that puts her this low. Knight was second in, bordering on the edge of the middle tier, with a 35% dislike rating, but a rather low like rating, yet a sizable OK rating. I think this is nothing special as a result, to be honest. Doctor very closely follows Knight, with an 18% difference between likes and dislikes, but a clear higher weighting to dislikes. And I think in a similar way this result is nothing surprising. Doctor's power is pretty annoying at times. Nightmare then ends us off here, with a 22% difference between likes and dislikes. This is also nothing shocking. I personally think he's mainly disliked because he's just dull. I found a lot of Freddy players also just play in a fairly boring way too, but that's just me. Now finally we have the mainly disliked tier, for all the characters that were mostly voted for dislike votes, or with dislikes above the 50% mark. This category only applied to 4. Clown is our number 4, with 55% for OK, and a shockingly low 8% like rating. There was a near even split between dislikes and OKs, but dislikes are still clearly ahead. He's here I imagine mainly for the boring gameplay of slow movement and distorted vision, which is just straight unfun to face in my opinion. When your main tools as Survivor are your movement and vision, it feels bad to just be robbed of those with a simple bottle toss. Trickster is our number 3, with a 1% larger dislike rating than Clown, but a larger portion of likes, over doubling his, so they could probably be interchangeable. Trickster has a bit of a fanbase I think, Clown doesn't really to the same extent. Trickster can be annoying to face with the rapid fire knives and the feeling of being unable to dodge. Nurse is our number 2 with an honestly kind of surprisingly low 63% dislike rating. I think most have pretty much just gotten used to Nurse at this point, and accept she is just doing her own thing. She has a decent number of likes, and a good amount of people think she is okay to face. I'm mainly just surprised more people don't dislike facing her, to be honest. Hag was voted the most disliked to face of all 30 characters, with a 67% dislike rating and only a 10% like rating. This didn't surprise me really. Hag's gameplay isn't really enjoyable to face, particularly as most tend to camp and utilize her strong add-ons to easily wipe teams. It can be one of the most miserable experiences in the game, getting held in a 3-gen by Hag. So yeah, this doesn't surprise me really. Alright, well, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed, and let me know what you think of these results down below. Thanks, and okay, bye!